Hello, everybody. Today we got an interesting pod. We have Andrew Morgans from Marknology, 200 million plus in managed revenue for his Amazon brands, counting at what 300 plus now. Lots of knowledge coming from Andrew. So we'll just kick it off. Andrew, give us some background. What are some of the numbers? How big is the organization now, and where did it start? Like, we'd love to know
Yeah,
some of that history.
honestly, like the numbers are, always the catcher,
Yeah.
the newsreel or whatever. But honestly, just 15 years in the space, in the Amazon space specifically, and obviously it's evolved into marketplace like Walmart and TikTok Shop and other things. But just been doing the Amazon thing a long time, working with brands, and specifically took that route of the service side from the beginning. And I'm actually like building my own brands last 5 or 6 years. So like kind of in reverse to a lot of people. I feel like a lot of times they started early, built a brand, and then go into services and just had a different route. I came from like e-commerce really early, working in e-commerce with like a startup, and then so I kind of just went that route. Family owned business. My sisters joined me like year 4 or 5. We're a tight group. Like grew up as missionary kids, so like just found ourselves working together again later in life. But we're a team of about 30, 31, I think, and work with brands from all over the world. The team's from all over the world as well. I'm in Kansas City. This is our HQ, I guess, so to speak. But
Yeah.
still, just it's been some highs and some lows. Like I think anyone can relate to like the post pandemic, like the crazy like high, and then like the crash that's been like with the economy and tariffs and margins and all that kind of stuff. I'd say probably the last couple of years, and I don't know why, but it feels like we're coming out of it a little bit. So I guess I should be able to say why, but it just feels like, this year feels a little bit different than last year. And, still passionate about it. Still passionate about, working with brands, building brands, fixing problems.
Right. It never gets stale. So,
I think that's
you're
something about
always,
e-commerce is like
yeah.
it's kept my attention for a decade plus, almost a decade and a half. And because it is always changing and it's really hard. It's really hard. So I think
Yeah.
for me, I definitely work jobs where I like, you master it, and then you kind of just like, okay, what's next? You get bored. You just kind of twiddling your thumbs. And Amazon, e-com, the bigger overall picture has definitely kept me learning and losing and failing and figuring it out like for a long time.
Cool. No, that's awesome. And you started, I mean, talk to me about your brands too, because everyone's like, you're going to run an agency for e-com. Why don't you have your own brands? And you kind of done that, right? So
Yeah.
Landlocked Clothing is one of those brands. I was
Yeah,
looking into it as
so
well.
I probably need to update my social media a bit. I like, definitely pushed harder on like some of the different channels like Instagram or whatever in the early days,
Uh-huh.
and now it's LinkedIn and podcasting really. So it's just
Yeah.
changed a lot, But Landlock was actually one of my first brands. Just to try aggressive things, especially like I think like a almost like a responsibility. If I'm getting hired by a brand as a consultant, like a responsibility is like to keep them out of trouble, to not do black hat stuff, to like, walk the line, so to speak. But
Right.
doing your own brands, you can take more risk. You can try different things. And I'm not saying being black hat, but more like bundling and trying inserts and trying co-marketing with different people and trying bold marketing and trying conservative marketing. And like if you really want to be A/B testing and learning as fast as you can, you need to be able to have either a brand that allows you to do those things and kind of gives you like carte blanche and trusts you and lets you like try stuff. They have that personality, or build your own. Otherwise, you're kind of only stuck doing and trying the things that the brands will, be okay with you doing. Or else you're working with just black hat sellers, which also is weird because,
Right.
that leaves a bad taste in your mouth too, and you're getting yourself in trouble and working through that. My goal is never to get in trouble. It's more to just be like guerrilla style, like, pushing with TikTok creators and like, in the early days. Each time any of these things come out, you almost need to be innovative. So I say all that to say that's always why I've wanted to have a brand and like be in the trenches, is like so I can try those things. I have a warehouse in 3PL here in KC, so with my own brands, if I want to be successful, I know that inventory and supply chain and really managing that well is a key part of success. So
Mhm.
I also pioneered down that route, which is like getting, building a warehouse, and I'm actually this week acquiring my biggest my biggest purchase, not one I've built, one I've acquired. It's about $1 million brand in annual revenue with pretty good margins. I've been actually
Wow.
building it already for 3 years with the original owner. So I'm acquiring it from her. And so it's not really a big risk or anything crazy, if that makes sense. I've already been
Yeah.
growing it. But that's been the goal, is to like build in a very slow way, kind of like be a private equity firm investor, for our own brands and build a stable of brands. And that's just happened kind of naturally the last 5 or 6 years.
That's awesome. Wow. So you went down the 3PL route. You own the 3PL, so you're kind of gaining clients from that end, and you're gaining clients from the marketing end. And then obviously for your own brands, that's a match made in heaven. You have the marketing, you have the fulfillment, the control, like you said. So
Yeah,
that's
vertically,
pretty
and like
awesome.
if you've been doing this long enough for others, I love partnering with the right people. Like I am that type of creator where it's like it's me plus plus,
Hmm.
generally. But you don't always find the best brands to work with. Like as you get more experience, you obviously get better choices, I guess, so to speak, who you're working with, things
Right.
like that. But through the years, I just saw so many brands either like not be able to manage well or get stuck in bad situations because they're with a bigger 3PL that gets acquired, or they're too small, or
Right.
pandemic happens, or making a change, a label change, or a strategy is so hard. It's like pulling teeth. That I was just like, look, if I'm going to be successful, building, running my own brands, like I have to have this piece. I felt like I had to have this
Right.
piece. I just saw so many losing, and it wasn't their fault necessarily, other than
Hmm.
who they choose, right?
Yep.
So I went down that route, and for my own brands, but we probably have 12 or 13 customers in there as well. And it's like I spend no time marketing that, other than it's just a natural pipeline. The agency is just kind of a natural pipeline for that. If someone has a
Yeah.
problem, we can solve it. We're not like, I don't have 10 warehouses nationwide or anything like that, but like we're essentially located in the Midwest. And, outside FBA is the main shipping channel, but we also can do Shopify, and the others like from the Midwest is pretty good. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's more of like a one-stop shop, and for international brands, um, it's a lot easier for them to have one spot to just kind of like they're taking on a lot, trying to figure out all the paperwork to launch into the U.S. and just have like a warehouse for them to land.
Yeah.
And I don't know about Utah, like I know Wide Open Space. I've been there a couple times speaking. KC has a cave system, a lot of cave systems. So our
What's
warehouse
a
is
cave
actually,
system?
yeah, it's actually in a cave. Like our warehouse is in a massive cave, which um, it's just cool and unique. It keeps everything
Yeah.
climate controlled naturally, and
Wow.
pretty cool.
Yeah. So it sounds like a bunker almost.
Yeah, it is kind of like, I don't know if it would hold up too much, but like
Yeah.
it's like I'm in the smaller one in KC, but there's one that's like miles
No
deep. I think that
way.
that the Chiefs own, so it's like a sports thing. But yeah, it's like maybe the Missouri River years ago like came through all these hills and
Carve
like carved
through.
them all
Yeah.
out, but they're all natural. Most of them are naturally carved out. So full diesel trucks pulling down in there, right? Like so, it's a
Yeah.
really big system. But yeah, it's cool. It's did a couple of years out in the hot heat. KC heat gets like over 100 and gets super cold too. And when you're
Yeah.
starting a warehouse, you're out there helping a lot yourself. And
Yeah.
um, found out about the caves, and I'm like, yeah, I'm never looking back. The climate controlled is just like it's like blessings. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. When you first start, you got to sometimes jump on the forklift. You got to make sure that things get moved and help out. So, those are some good times that I myself would like to look back on and say, yeah, that was fun. I'm glad I'm not really there right now, but that was really fun.
Yeah, you gotta document it. Like that's the one regret
Yeah.
I have is like um I think it's because like in some ways you're like looking higher and you're not necessarily proud of where you are and what you're doing, and there's an
Yeah.
element of that, but um every step gets you to the next step, and several years in looking back, I was just like, man, I wish I had documented some of those, a few more pictures, a few more notes, a few more diary journals, so um yeah, just a
That's
reminder
cool.
to document if you can, because you won't regret it.
I love that. I love that. Well, that's a note for myself as well. Another reason why we wanted to start the podcast is to like, because we learn a lot talking with you, and this is our form of documenting
Yeah, for
and doing
sure.
that way. So, no, that's awesome. So, talk to me about when you onboard a like brand new brand, right? And we talked about how it's never stale in the e-commerce place. But what systems are you initially starting out with? Like, what is the system that you need to overlay across that brand when you onboard them across any channel or a specific channel?
Yeah, so it's world of AI and world of data, right? And let's talk to specifically any channel. I think I like to give like more general advice in case anyone's listening. Um, I've come on with brands as like a fractional e-commerce director. That's the way that I work with a couple of brands where I'm not just like the agency partner, the TikTok shop partner, the Walmart partner, the Shopify partner. It's like the level above that, where you're really kind of
Yeah.
looking at all the channels and giving direction, kind of like laying out the plan and kind of like a war general, so to speak. And the only way to give to make battle plans or to pick a path forward and a strategy is to know where you are first.
Right.
You have to know where you are first. So even if the brand is from day one and they've never sold a single thing, where are you at? Gather the troops. Who's on the team? What are our assets, human and otherwise? And what do we have to work with? And so,
Mhm.
if you're dealing with a brand like let's say more on average is a brand doing like $1 million, all right, and let's say they're on Shopify, Google, Meta Ads, and Amazon, to start, maybe like some of the general areas. Um, I think the number one thing is to whether you've built the tools yourself, whether there's tools out there, is you need to know your numbers. So get your profitability numbers on Amazon and off Amazon um, integrated or dialed in as quickly as you can. And what that means is like your cost of goods, how much you're spending on ads or not spending on ads, what your general overhead is in your warehouse or whatever that might be. And you can start with baseline estimates of what those things are. Like, what are the estimates in my category? If you don't know those things, you just be surprised how many people don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but there's tools like Sellerboard on Amazon or Merchant Spring or a number of those. And there's also generally advertising tools that we plugged in. So one is about knowing like your profitability. I just don't think you can just make a direction where you're going until you know like where you are. And if you come into a brand that already has those things, great, get plugged in and immediately see their numbers. It's just that is never the case. I'm telling you, it's not. So I would assume that that's not done, and I would get that plugged in. And a lot of times, all that is knowing your cost of goods, and then the tools do the rest of the work, which is
Right.
which is great. And that might take 30 days. Like honestly, getting the software plugged in, making sure stuff's not broke, making sure it's accurate. Because what you're trying to do is not just look at the overall health of your business from 50,000 foot view. You're trying to know all the way down to your SKUs, which ones are making money, which ones are not, because that's where the plan's going to come from. Is it going to come from new SKUs we're going to launch? Is it going to come from fixing the old ones? Is it going to be from scaling the winners? Like, if you just had a cookie cutter answer for that, I would say you're not really a pro. Because you really like, how can you decide that before you look at what's there?
Yeah.
And even if they tell you that, it's trust but verify, respectfully,
Hmm.
right? It's like, I trust you. Thank you for giving me direction, but let's verify this together. And a lot of times you can find ways to pay for yourself just by doing that correctly. As an agency, if you're good, you can find ways to pay for yourself in value through finding optimizations in their COGS or, one example would be there's a brand doing about 10 million a year. Um, Onboarded with him, doing an evaluation of his like reimbursements that he should get back from Amazon. And there's some that, it's changed a lot. Amazon automatically reimburses you. And so meaning like an item gets lost in FBA or gets destroyed or gets returned and you should get refunded. And if you're doing a lot of that over time, it adds up. And the small correction in his was he hadn't updated his cost of goods had gone up and he hadn't updated into Amazon's portal his cost of goods by these are like $500 items, $400 items. So like the cost of goods might have been 20, 40, $50 across quite a few items. And we found several thousand like right upon onboarding, just like what Amazon automatically reimburses you for. Well, the COGS need to
Yeah.
be updated and we saw they hadn't been updated in a while, checked it. And just on the fly example of like how that due diligence and doing it right is like ways to provide value even during, you're not in growth yet. You're just like getting dialed in. So all that to say, you have to get your baseline numbers. They say it's like if you don't, what cannot be measured cannot be improved, and I 100% believe that.
Right.
You can also lose yourself just trying to perfect every single number. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about like getting a baseline, and then getting your advertising, especially depending on the size of the account. It's very easy if there's nothing there, like you're coming in, there's no ads running, you can come in and get it set up. You don't necessarily need a tool. But if you're doing a million plus in ads, there's a lot of moves daily that's happening. The reporting is okay within Amazon, especially with AI. You can do a lot. So, if you're really techie, maybe just integrate with Claude and get into an MCP or something like that, and it can be enough to help you. But still, even then, those are like draw pools, and you got to know what you're asking and that kind of thing. Setting up with a partner, like we use Trellis out of Canada for advertising. We just have our rules that we plug in there by account. It's automation. If it gets to 10 clicks and hasn't had a bid, do this, and so a lot of complex rules. So we're getting the baseline profitability and we're getting the ads in line while we come on board and figure everything else out. So that was a long answer, but I mean, I can't hammer it enough that you have to know your numbers. And it's like what most
Right.
people avoid. Most brand builders are just like, don't want to talk their numbers.
Right. They kind of avoid it, but once and like you said, you mentioned it earlier, and the answer was a lot of brands don't even know some of the simple things when they bring it on, and some of them might be pretty big brands. And you're like, hey, actually, it's a 50 oh, it's 15%, and that seems so silly, right? And most people know that, but it still happens a few times when brands talk about like they're finally talking about their numbers, and it's unfortunate because they find out too late, right?
Yes.
Well, in the most part, and that's when you kind of have to be careful. So when you're talking about these brands and their phases, that's the launch phase, right? And you figured out all the numbers, going from 1 to 10 to 50 million. When you're trying to scale them now, and then you have a good idea of where their numbers are at, what are some huge milestones? What do you incorporate a little bit differently when you're talking about reaching, some 10x numbers from where they first started with you? What is that
Yeah.
driver for the most part?
So, a lot like what you're doing in the day to day starts to change.
Mhm.
You start A/B testing a lot more. Like a lot of people are doing some crazy stuff at the beginning, and I'm not saying you can't do that, but when you have the basics to handle and um, just like focus on the things, keep in stock, inventory, running good product, watching reviews. But when you get to the next stage and things are grooving, you start A/B testing more. You start trying different video. You start moving into maybe Amazon Marketing Cloud and DSP, which is like a higher level of advertising. So you start looking at more things, I guess, so to speak, and you start. It's almost like, okay, let's get real granular with some of the things that we're focusing now, because as you get more expertise, which happens like with um, as you start scaling, you start looking at, okay, let's start looking at our forecasting and trying to get that dialed in better and faster and more, instead of just like overstocking because we want to make sure we don't run out. We're trying to get really lean, and maybe you're using a part of this service and a part of this service, like Amazon's AWD, which is their like automated fulfillment, and you can enroll several SKUs there to help you scale as you get up against like capabilities in your warehouse or your team. Like having your main ASIN in AWD is a great way to like ensure that it stays in good place. A lot of times, at this point, if they're very Amazon focused in the beginning, they start looking at other channels like Walmart, TikTok Shop, International Amazon, Amazon Canada, some of these things. You start looking at content refreshes and like, just making sure um, dotting the T's or dotting the I's and crossing the T's, so to speak. And a lot of times what I
Yeah.
see is teams get bigger. So we have the capability now. You could tell a person anything and everything about Amazon, all the 15 years of knowledge you know. If it's one or two people on a team handling everything, they don't even have the capability to manage that. So it's like, don't press that if we don't have the ability. But a lot of times as the brand starts scaling, their department will go from one person to two people to four people to five people. Even with you, the agency still on board, a lot of times internally they get more bandwidth, and so then you're able to go deeper. Like you get a person just focusing on ads and someone just working on inventory, and the kind of roles um, spread out, and so the
Yeah.
focus spreads out. So, um, hopefully the tools that you have, like as far as software and profitability, those scale with you. So that's we're getting those so that we can scale. Is how I feel. Like we want to know where we're at, and then after that, it's just like it just seems like the general direction is to go deeper in every area and
Yeah.
to get to the next level.
And operationally, what do you think is like the biggest mistake? Or maybe it's not a big mistake, but the most common mistake as you're growing that these brands make? I mean, you've seen a lot of success, and unfortunately, with that, there's a lot of downfall with brands, and they make mistakes. Sometimes they go under, sometimes they make it and recover. But in your experience, like, what do you think is that mistake that a lot of these brands make?
I have a lot of answers because
Yeah.
like there's a human aspect to it. Okay, so like with scaling, a lot of times I'll work with the owner at the beginning. They start scaling or growing, or even a manager. Let's say it's not the owner. You get a relationship. You work through the hard stuff together. You build trust. You start growing. You go from 1 million to 2 million. Like if someone helped me grow my business from 1 million to 2 million, I'd trust them, right? Like
Right.
like at least that's where I'm at. You build trust. You start understanding like, hey, they trusted you before. They'll trust you on the next one, and then success actually brings a new hire. Um,
Mhm.
and it's not like with a new hire, agencies generally have a whole new onboarding again for the new manager or the new director. Like there's not this whole process of like onboarding them also. You might have a kickoff call or an integration call or something, but it's not the same as the months that you spent with the brand owner the first time. And so that new person comes in, they have something to prove. They don't have that trust that you guys have, and a lot of times like that handoff is just not great, and the agency that got them there like is lost, and they've committed to this new hire. At least that's like my perspective from the agency side, and it's very rarely that they're like crushing it and we're not if we help build a business. That's just
Right.
the truth.
Right.
It's just like sometimes it's easier to start a new relationship than to fix things with your old girlfriend. So um, like jokes aside, but like that's kind of the case. And so they're
Yeah.
just like, let's cut ties and like start a new relationship. And that's just you lose, if you're a business owner, it's hire fast, fire fast. Every time you've like started training an employee or invested time in them, it's an investment. And when they leave or move on or you terminate them, it's a lot of lost ROI. Okay, so
Right.
same thing with an agency. Some people think that like switching agencies, they get a big ROI when they switch, and there is a time and place for that. But you also lose a lot of like track, a lot of ground, a lot of like relationship, a lot of like understanding of the brand, and then you're swapping them out for even if they're an awesome agency, you're swapping them out and they just got to know you again. So
Yeah.
it's that people handoff and that transition, even in success, not even just in getting fired. Like you can be successful and still like lose ground. Some of the other things I would say that's like on the brand side would be lack of understanding their baseline, their profitability, their numbers. Like if you're not tracking it, then you don't even know if you're getting overcharged at your warehouse or what normal shipping rates are or what like your competitors' margins are. Or like you can be the
Yeah.
best agency in the world if there's no margin to work with, because everything's taken a chunk of it by the time it gets there. You haven't thought about the way you're shipping it or the warehouse you're using or the way you're packaging it or your co-packer. If you haven't thought about those things, like we have less room to advertise, we have less, room to do anything else. And that's something we can't control as an agency. So that's one that sticks out when you want to win and you're like kind of hands are tied, with
Yeah.
margin. Um, and so I would say it's not knowing their numbers, personnel, okay, like swaps or whatever, and not the owner not be like the owner being like just excited to scale out and not like really hand holding that. And
Yeah.
then the last one would be inventory and supply chain. So I think too many people, too many brands, yeah, so running an e-commerce brand is quite a bit different than an agency, and it's really hard. The cash flows involved to really scale, if you're successful, is just as hard as it is to like get it successful. So you have to have more and more and more capital to put into like getting the inventory to be able to like not lose a selling season or keep your supply chain and inventory numbers up. And so it also comes back to a financial play of like knowing your numbers inside your business and knowing like when to make those orders, when not, when to, just like if you're a young entrepreneur or an older entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. And you're still just learning cash flow and inventory projections and forecasting. And there's this unknown about, you don't know how it's going to do, what it's going to do. I think that's just something that money can fix if you have a lot of it, if that makes sense. But if you don't,
Yeah.
it can be a hurdle for a lot of companies.
Yeah. If cash is, that cushion, then great, good for you. But like you said, if it's thin and you're waiting for sales to make the next order, yeah, it could get pretty scary pretty fast for those brands.
Yeah, and
I do have,
brands can get in a bad
go ahead.
spot, and like taking loans and inventory loans and things
Right.
like that, and it's just hard to get out of it. It's really hard to get out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of a bad snowball effect when you start doing that. I mean, I've heard great stories. I took this loan, I started paying off, I paid off the loan, and now I'm just cash rich, and kind of turns out that way. But how often does it not? And
Yeah.
so that's when you have to really balance it and know your numbers, like you said. So I do have two more questions. Obviously, Prime Day is in a week, I feel like. I think it is on the 23rd. So you're probably in them just trying to make sure, looking at everything. A lot of those things are already set, deadlines passed, clients have a lot of questions. What trends do you see for this Prime Day? How does it differ from previous? Especially with every other channel launching right now. I feel like TikTok's Prime Day starts on the 17th, not Prime Day, but their sale starts on the 17th and goes all the way into July.
That's
And so
crazy.
they're like hugging it. It's pretty crazy.
We're trying
So
to get
yeah,
people to
what's
stop
yours?
going to Utah for summer and like being outside, and then I don't know what
Yeah.
they're.
Yeah, I know. Like now I gotta work heavy. This is my Q4 now. But yeah, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so it definitely changes like year to year. And it used to be more predictable and like, but it's probably like 50-50 or maybe even like 30-70, 30 on the low side of being like of the brands that we actually push hard to be involved in Prime Day. I think there's specific like categories that do well, and there's other categories where you're just giving Amazon your money.
Right.
Um, you're just giving Amazon your money, especially if you're in like a type of item that people are going to buy anyway, like a commodity item, and it's not like a TV. It's not like these things with like big margins and like people are looking for these big slashes. Sure, I can find a silver lining in anything, meaning like you can take advantage of it just to like move some product or but it's not a holiday to close out of inventory that you're trying to get rid of. It's for like your best seller giving a great deal, and if the deal's not like competitive, you should just save your margin and not do it at all. So
Right.
I feel like brands like to participate quite a bit more than an Amazon seller does, and I hate to put them in two categories because an Amazon seller can be a brand also, but Amazon sellers have just been in the game a long time generally, or at least a few years, and realize that when you really see the end of Prime Day and you look at it in reverse and you're looking at your numbers, a lot of times it's you're doing a lot of work for a little bit of margin, and so
Yeah.
it's just knowing your competition. Is your competition in it? Are they going to try to pass you with ranking? Is it something that you've really thought out, or are you just doing it because you're getting a ton of promotional messaging about it? Yeah, on our side, like a lot of the work's already done. It's even if our brands aren't participating, it's a lot of back and forth, a lot of communicating. So I'm, as the youth say, I think it's going to be mid this year, and I'm not expecting
Yeah.
anything crazy, but we'll be ready. We'll be prepared.
Right. Well, yeah, it changes every year, like you said. And so it's interesting because this year we have fuel surcharges, not just on Amazon, but across USPS and FedEx and UPS. And so margin right now is so tight. They even extended, I think, the deadline for getting brands to, change or add more products to the promotions. And, unfortunately, these brands have kind of like took a step back. Maybe fortunately, right? They're kind of smarter about it, but this has been a tighter year for Prime Day in my experience. Like volumes were projected to be maybe a little lower, spread out across multiple channels, and so it's interesting to see how that rolls out. We'll see. Like you said, we'll look back and say, "Oh, I'm glad I didn't put all my chips in that basket," kind of
Right.
thing. And
I
right,
think
we'll make sure of it.
we go through different periods, and a few years ago, maybe it's like, look, you're trying to show top line revenue and you're trying to get bought and you're trying to show, potential growth. And I think we're in a phase right now where being profitable is sexy. And so if
Yeah,
you're trying to like run the brand or even get acquired, it's better to look profitable and have less sales, and show healthier, if that makes sense, than to be like super, super, skinny, so to speak, because you're pushing hard and you
right.
have no margin. So
Yeah,
I think that's just a change, and every brand has different goals. Like if they're trying to show high to get certain loans, or they're trying to show high to hit a certain threshold to get acquired or something like that. And there's these one-offs. You can't just generally apply. But in general, I think everyone is like, I'll take less revenue year over year for a healthier margin, and to not put my business in such a stressful scenario. And so I think that then in turn leads to, results of Prime Day and things that people are doing. And when you put that as the at the forefront of like your decision making of your strategy, and you're saying, okay, we do want to grow, we do want these things, but like not at the cost of margin. So,
Right.
it's all kind of running through that conversation first.
Right, exactly. And then my last question here, because we kind of spoke about the range, and it's so cool that you know the operation side from your 3PL business all the way to the advertising and marketing side. Well, in AI, like what's the coolest thing that you've seen between AI and e-com, and are you implementing it, and what are you expecting in the future to impact e-com entirely, and how's that affecting your business? How's it affecting your brand's business? Yeah, tell me more about your thoughts there.
I think it's freaking incredible. Like,
It's crazy.
there's a lot of like hype about things. They come and go. And if you've been doing this a long time, like 15 years, you see stuff come and go. And AI is such a general thing. It's almost like people interchanging Wi-Fi and internet. They're not the same, but like they're the same. And
Right.
so I don't know. It's I'm in it heavy, 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 heavy. Like I've built a second brain of our like all of our SOPs and our playbooks and all my podcast episodes, all my emails for the last 15 years. Like a lot of that thought leadership, and I've built a. For me, what's really exciting is like that layer, that brain layer on top of the agentic software you're using at the time, like Claude or whatever it is. So you've got the kind of marknology brain, you've got the agentic brain level of intelligence, and then and my background is in tech, like at my degrees, so in software and security, networking and security. So some of this comes a little bit easier to
Wow.
me. But what
Yeah.
I say all that to say, if I had all the time in the world, okay, I own my time, had all the time in the world, I know that in an Amazon account or e-com business, there's all these different layers that you can look at and really ingest. You could be looking at where customers are buying, what time of day they're buying, what we're ranking for, what we're not ranking for, what our competitors are ranking for, with the different photo strategies that are out there, what we're doing on TikTok Shop, what we're doing on Amazon, what we're doing on Shopify, the meta targeting, all of these different aspects. Okay, like a thousand variables. And if you had all the time in the world, like, when you cross reference these things in Excel or you're like really digging into stuff as an expert, you can find all this like advantages and ways to win and opportunities. And it's like, oh, this insight creates this action and this action. And so, but to do that at scale, especially as an agency owner, is next to impossible. And when, especially when you have a team, you can't do everything. You got to delegate. You got to like, work on different stuff. No one just owns all their time and that kind of stuff. And it becomes almost like you have to be a dashboard builder to really pull it all together. And all that to
Yeah.
say, excited about like building essentially a hub for us, for me, for my brands to be able to take in like what's my true profitability on TikTok Shop and Walmart and Shopify and Amazon and Google and Meta, combine it. What are the insights across those different things that I could be leveraging or that I haven't seen before, or some
Yeah.
insights that like I think might be the next light bulb, or the next content that I put out could be driven by some Reddit reviews, or like just being able to essentially get access to all of that and then actually ingest it and then like interpret it at a high level and find ways to win. I think that's like that level like is just really hard to do, and now AI is making it like if you can get all those pieces together and you can ask the right questions in the right framework, you can find some cool stuff in there.
Right. I remember it's 2017 and the hot thing was chatbots, and it was
Yeah. And they
right
were
now.
like
Yeah.
people made tons of money on them,
Yeah.
they were just scaling like search find buy or like essentially like one of our brands came with like a chatbot funnel when I acquired it, and it went down for a little bit, and then like the difference in reviews like was crazy because the chatbot
Wow.
is just like it gets in front of them and tries to answer questions and solve them or whatever before they leave reviews, and
Yeah.
so anyway, you know
Right.
it's gone a
And
long
now
way
look at
from
us,
chatbot.
like
Yeah,
right from them.
yeah.
That's crazy. And well, first off, I really appreciate it, Andrew. It's so much knowledge and experience that comes from it. And I had no idea that you had a tech background. So you're already 10 steps ahead of all of the other agencies and ops that can't even speak. They're still vibing when they're vibe coding, right? And so you're understanding the framework. You understand how to manage the code base and get it to a point, especially security, right? Since that's your background. And I know that's a huge phase right now that people are worried about with AI. So I am super stoked to see what you come out with in the near future because
Thank
I
you. I
know
do
it'll
think
be
I'm in a
really cool.
unique spot with the use case, just like having been doing this 15 years and the information to feed it, the conversation, the failures, the wins, like they're all in there at some point, and
Mhm.
trying to extract them and just be like, okay, I already have brands in all of these areas that I can ingest. It's not like I have an idea for a brand that I have to go build them in each of those areas, right? It's like it's all right there. It's just a matter of like pulling it together. So I'm having fun with it, to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Well, tell the people where they could find you, and we'll sign
Yeah,
off.
so I'm on LinkedIn, Andrew Morgans, obviously marknology.com. My name's not Mark, my name's Drew. Marknology, a mixture of marketing and technology. I just feel like e-commerce kind of sits in the middle of those two things, and it's like, it's kind of like a little bit of art and science. But LinkedIn, on Instagram, I'm Andrew Morgans as well. I think there's only one with the S on the name or something, so it's just me. But I'm happy to chat with anybody on any platform. I try to be everywhere, and it's fun to just like Casey. A lot of times as an entrepreneur, can get locked into just doing your thing, and it's the pandemic taught me like you can still stay connected, and follow what people are doing and stay inspired. So love getting on podcasts like this and meeting people like you, and anyone that's listening would love to connect.
Cool. Well, thank you, Drew. I appreciate it. Everybody, go ahead and give Drew a follow on his podcast and on LinkedIn. And I appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you.
All right. Take care, man. See you.